I'm Ryan Lynch. That's me on stage shredding on guitar. I've been involved with music both on and off stage for the better part of 2 decades. I'm often surprised by the amount of musicians whose knowledge of gear ends when it comes to mixing audio for a rock show like the one on screen. After watching this tutorial, I'm confident that musician or not, you'll be able to run good sound for a good old-fashioned rock show. But before we can get to rockin', you'll need to familiarize yourself with some equipment. This, my friends, is an audio mixing board, or a mixer. As a sound guy or girl, this piece of equipment is going to be your bread and butter. Now I know what you're saying, this just looks like a bunch of knobs and sliders to me, but with a little bit of basic knowledge, it's easy to understand and you can get a lot done with it. Speaking about knobs and sliders, let's take a look at the actual functionality of them and how to use them on an audio mixer. Using knobs is easy. Turning a knob left will turn its labeled function down, and turning it right will turn its labeled function up. Take a look at our first knob, labeled low 80 Hz. Note that 0 is denoted by a U, and all the way left is negative 15 decibels, all the way right, positive 15 decibels. The knob above it, labeled frequency, is labeled quite differently. All the way left being 100 Hz, and all the way right being 8 kilohertz. This is why it is very important to look at each knob before using it. This way you understand exactly what you are adjusting and how. The white sliders at the bottom of the screen are called faders. They are very intuitive, as pushing them up turns their labeled functionality up, and pushing them down turns their labeled functionality down. In the case of these sliders, 0 is denoted with a U. All the way up is positive 10 decibels, and all the way down is negative infinity. Just like knobs, it is very important to note these labels. Think of the audio mixer as a series of channels which carry sound via electrical signal from a microphone to the PA speakers. Here we can follow the route of each electrical signal down their own channels labeled 1 through 12, and ultimately into our master channel, or main mix. We route the sound signal into each channel via the input. Inputs come in 3 main types: mono XLR, which most often comes from a microphone, mono quarter inch, which is used most often with instruments, and stereo RCA, which is used mostly with consumer stereo equipment, like a turntable or a CD player. In general, XLR is the preferred method of input, which generates the best quality. After the sound signal travels into the channel, we can apply trim or gain. This lowers or raises the level of the signal using what is called a preamp. When adjusting trim or gain, the goal is to equalize all the channels we are using to a similar peak level. We do this by making slight adjustments to the gain, while looking at the peak light or VU meter on the mixer. The peak light will shine when clipping occurs. A basic rule of thumb when it comes to adjusting gain is that if the peak light is constant, there is too much. If it does not shine at all, there is too little. Like other settings on the mixing board, this can require a certain feel that you will get the hang of the more you play with it. I personally like to set the gain to the point where it starts to clip, and then dial it ever so slightly back so no clipping occurs during the performance. Next down the line as we follow the signal through the channel is a section labeled auxiliary. This is normally used for monitors for the musicians to hear themselves on stage. Here we have 2 auxiliary outputs, meaning 2 separate channels for on-stage monitors. Below that, this mixer has 2 channels for audio effects as well. We won't cover these in this basic tutorial, so go ahead and make sure any effect sends on your mixer are turned all the way down to avoid any issues. Down the signal path is our EQ or equalizer setting. This can be used to fine-tune the tonal quality of the instrument or microphone coming down this channel. The knob or slider in an EQ acts as a trim or gain setting for specific frequencies of sound. These frequencies represent a tonal range, highs being high-pitched sounds like hi-hats or cymbals, mids reflecting mid-range sounds like guitars and most vocals, and lows representing bass or rumbling sounds. If you don't understand how EQ works, it's best to leave it alone, as it's easier to cause more harm than good. But there are a few tips for a quick and easy pro sound, like dropping low frequencies for vocals and cutting highs and sometimes mids on bass drums. Next in line before the channel fader is the pan knob. If your PA is set up in stereo, this will allow you to set this channel between the left and right speakers or both. We can see that each channel other than our main mix has a mute button. This button, when depressed, will keep any sound from coming from that channel. Finally, at the end of our signal path is our channel fader. This fader allows us to raise and lower the volume of this channel before it is sent to the main or master mix. After the channel fader, all signals dump into the main mix at the level set to at the channel fader. The main mix or master fader turns the volume for all channels up and down, essentially raising or lowering all channel faders at once. The VU, or volume unit meter, refers to the main mix or master channel. It will glow in reference to the level of sound traveling through to the speakers. These are usually color-coded: green for good, yellow for caution, and red for danger. If your VU meter is going red or clipping, make sure to turn down any suspected channels that may be causing it, as too much clipping can cause damage to speakers and amplifiers. As a matter of fact, the majority role of the sound person after sound check is to monitor the levels on the VU meter and to make adjustments so that it sounds better and to avoid damage to speakers and equipment. That concludes this rundown of an audio mixer. This mixer, the Mackie CFX12, is kind of a standard mixer, but all audio mixers are slightly different. Even though other mixers may have more or less features than this one, this knowledge will transfer well to all other mixers. We're going to take a look at that now as I run you through a sound check at Zombies Bar and Grill in Amarillo, Texas. Now that you know enough to be dangerous with an audio mixer, let's take a look at a few pre-production tasks we need to complete before we can do sound check. First, let's take a look at our equipment. This particular mixer happens to have 16 channels, a separate left and right master fader, and a master fader for our onstage monitors. Closer examination shows us that each channel has a knob for adjusting trim, high frequency, mid frequency, low frequency, a monitor send, an effects send, a pan, peak level light, and channel fader. It is important for us to note that there is no mute button on this mixer. Now that we know what we are working with, our second pre-production task is to take a look at the size of the room versus the amplification the artist has brought with them. This is when we will decide if we will need to mic up instruments or use amplifier sound from the stage to fill the room. If an artist has a small practice amp or combo that won't fill the room with sound, you will want to mic this amplifier and route the mic into the mixer. If the artist has large amplifiers capable of filling the room with sound, do not mic the amplifiers. Instead, instruct the artist to raise the volume up to the point that they can all hear each other. Then walk around the room, listening carefully and telling them to make specific volume adjustments in order to fill the room with sound and sound good together. Our final pre-production task is to set up any vocal mics that will be used and to use a piece of masking tape and a Sharpie pen to label the channels on the mixer. This way there can be no confusion as to what channel is for what instrument. In the case of the band here with us today, the Mullets, I've decided to put a microphone to the amplifier of the guitar player. This is because it's smaller and won't be able to keep up with the great on-stage sound that the bass player's half stack has. And a bass drum mic, in order to raise the level of it to compete with the rest of the kit. I've also set up 2 vocal mics for both the bassist and guitar player, as they've let me know that both of them do vocals. Now that our pre-production tasks are complete, we are ready to do our sound check. We're going to do it in 10 easy steps, beginning with step 1. Make sure each channel that you are using is reset. The trim and gain is set all the way down, as well as your monitor or aux channels, and your EQs are set to 0. Make sure all your faders, master and channel, are set all the way down. This will give you a clean slate to work with. Step 2. Double checking that all of our channels and master channels are set all the way down, we turn on our mixer and PA. Step 3. Set our master fader, in this case both left and right, to 0. We're also going to set our master monitor levels to 0. Now we've reached the meat and potatoes of it. Step 4. Set the channel fader of the channel that you are going to sound check to -5 decibels. Step 5. Have the musician or vocalist play or sing, and set the gain or trim as discussed earlier by using the peak light as a guide. Once the trim and gain is set, bring your channel fader back all the way down. Step 7. Have the artist continue to play or sing and set the level of their monitors by checking. Hey buddy, how's it sound on stage for you? Step 8. Repeat steps 4 through 7 for all the instruments and microphones you have going through the mixer or PA. Step 9. Have the band play a song all together. Set the volume level of each instrument you have coming through the mixer by using the channel fader. This is also a good time to make any EQ adjustments that you plan on making. Here it is important to listen with a critical ear, setting the level of each channel to the sweet spot where you would want it if you were a paying customer. Step 10. Let it rip. Now that sound check is done, don't forget your duties to watch for peak lights and to monitor your VU meter, making sure that no speakers get blown and that your amplifiers are safe. Remember, vocal feedback is the #1 cause of blown speakers, so if vocalists are exceptionally frenetic or move around a lot, you may have to ride their level on the mixer more than you would someone who is remaining stationary. That concludes this tutorial on how to do live sound for a rock show. I hope it filled in some knowledge for you as to how to use a mixer and how to do sound check. Please leave questions in the comments below on YouTube, as I plan on making more instructional videos and posting them. Until then, this is Ryan Lynch signing off, saying, remember, wherever you go, there you are.
Way.